Hello, my name is Phil and you are watching Wildstar Weekly, your weekly dose of Wildstar news. The date is the 19th of April. This week we'll be talking about the beta patch notes, the Wildstar Wednesday and Arkship 2013. Now that the beta is underway, well, beta, I'm just going to mix it up, guys. You'll probably hear me say both. I know some of you were kind of like mini raging that I was saying beta a lot and it's supposed to be beta, but you're just going to have to deal with it because my brain cannot handle this word apparently. But there you go. I am very sorry. I apologize now. But anywho, with the beta being around, there's been so much buzz in the community about it, and there's been good things and bad things that have come out. So I'm going to focus on the bad things first so that we can sort of cheer ourselves up with the good things later on. So one of the bad things for us EU players is that the beta is only open to North American players at the moment. And this was confirmed by Aether, or Troy Hewitt, and he says that the first few waves will be focused on North America. And then on top of all this, we then find out that each beta wave is going to be sent out approximately every 5 weeks or so. So if their first few waves are going to be concentrated on North America, how long is it going to be until EU players get a chance to get their hands in on beta? But not to worry really, because the wording of that was very sort of harsh, and each 5 weeks basically they're going to introduce new waves of beta invites. So hopefully that will include EU players as well, as we kind of know that the EU team in Brighton are kind of getting a bit annoyed about it as well, and they want a bit of the action, which is all understandable. But I think the idea of having 5 weeks is just so they have enough time to fix anything major, or even to put in a lot of different minor tweaks and basically make adjustments to the game. It gives them enough time to add things, take away things, and fix the game before the next beta invite waves come out. So I do think that the EU players will be able to access the beta in the few months to come. Unfortunately, this week we also have our first leak. Now, somebody in the closed beta test managed to leak the patch notes that they received, the closed beta testers received, onto the internet. So everybody managed to get their hands on it, and it was kind of awful really, because if you're being given the privilege to test the game in a closed beta form before the game's even in beta, open beta that is, then you know you gotta respect that sort of privilege you've been given and to not break your NDA agreement. But unfortunately this happened, and obviously all the anticipating Wildstar community jumped on it, and we all read the patch notes, and a lot of people had questions. Some good things came from it, some bad things came from it, and it created this whole sort of just a wedge in the community that the developers really did not want in the first place. So they responded, and they responded extremely adamantly. They went above and beyond the Call of Duty. They are showing that they are not going to be beaten by people who break the non-disclosure agreement. Deciding to officially release the patch notes that have been leaked to the community so we can all experience the patch notes officially rather than through sort of back alley websites, if you like. This could be looked at as a win for the person who broke the NDA, because they thought, hey, the beta patch notes have came out, I'm going to upload them to the internet, and then hey, look, everybody's got it officially now. However, Carbine are obviously smarter than that. They realise that the community have their hands on the patch notes and they want to respond positively to that. So they want to sort of allow us to feel comfortable with being able to access these patch notes. And of course they would never want it to happen again, because stuff they change and implement and take out and fix and improve on in the game, it's all subject to change. So if they do decide to change anything, they don't want a community getting really angry about changes they make when these changes weren't supposed to be seen in the first place.
Nobody touch anything.
And then off the back of all this patch notes leak nonsense, the Wildstar Wednesday this week was a really inspiring read. The way in which Carbine are going about their beta phases is just a sweet relief from the amount of other MMOs that have came out that have just done such weird sort of weekend beta phases, and they've been doing all these, like, I don't know, I think what Carbine are calling it is marketing beta, right? So they want people to experience the game in a semi-polished way so that they can get the hype train rolling and they sell more copies at launch. But Carbine are not for that. They think that the launch product should be the only product that the customers sort of get to see, and that the beta should be a beta, and it's for testing and it's for improving and it's for the community to say, look, you guys haven't done this very well, or this part of the game is absolutely awesome. Can you change this? You know, is it possible to do this? You know, and that's, if you're in the beta, that's what they want. They want you to criticize their game and give them back some constructive criticism so that they can improve on what they've done already and take things out and put things in and what have you. It's an actual beta test. So, and in the article they talk about the difference between playing and testing and sort of what they really think a beta is. They go on to talk about how their developers got beaten by players, by beta testers in the 3v3 arena, which is like a huge thing because it shows that their combat system is versatile and it's very skill based, because you can imagine developers playing the game, you know, 24/7 practically, and then players come in, learn the game and beat them in 3v3 arena. So that's pretty awesome. They also talked about how a player has already managed to make an add-on to the game, which is a UI add-on, and he's simply gone through all the code and made his own sort of add-on to the game without the help of sort of an add-on creator or whatever. I'm not too psyched up on that, so I'm not too sure what I'm talking about, but that's happened. And they just go on to talk about how they feel, how the testing's going, what they're doing to fix things, what they're doing to sort of, how they're reacting to player feedback, if you like. So if you're in the beta, how they're going to be reacting to the stuff you say and how they're going to fix the game and make it better. Awesomely, they also managed to show us the first beta tester called Pop-Tart, and that's a picture they managed to actually capture of the first beta tester, as well as a picture of the dungeon Stormtalon's lair. So that's really exciting, especially because we actually get a screenshot from it as well. And the guys who are going to Arkship 2013 are actually going to be able to test and play this dungeon, and they're going to be able to freely talk about it once they're done with the event. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to see how people react to dungeons in Wildstar. Last week we did a section called the Speculation Zone, and this is where I just speculated on Wildstar, and last week, for example, I talked about customizable mounts. This week, however, I want to change it and do a cool feature of the week, and in this I want to talk about an actual feature that's in the game already that's probably like not as highlighted as much, but yet is really, really awesome to play. So let me know which one you prefer, and I'll adapt each week to sort of what you guys prefer and what you guys enjoy. So for this week, I really wanted to highlight the double jump in Wildstar. And if you didn't know, in Wildstar you're allowed to double jump as well as dodge in every direction, and you can also hold down shift to sprint, much like you see in sort of first person shooters where you sort of, you know, you're jogging around normally, and when you press shift your character sprints along. They've put this in Wildstar as well, so they're really sort of focusing on movement. And games have done this in the past. For example, Guild Wars 2 you have dodging, Terra you have a lot of sort of dashing and dodging about as well. But Wildstar have really taken these features and made it their own and tried to improve on it as well. They've sort of looked at what's been done and have decided, yeah, that's awesome and we want to do it better. Which I personally feel they've done, because they've just added more to it. For example, the double jump. Now, in a podcast done by Respec Radio, which was hosted by Adam Bissena and featured the content director Mike Donatelli, I think his name was, they briefly discussed movement and combat, and movement in combat. And I just want to play you a clip from that.
It's pretty interesting to say is we have dashing, so you have a dash pool of how you can dash in and out of danger when you're fighting these creatures. And again, I thoroughly enjoy it for PvP. There's a lot of, but some of the things that I think are really important as far as that's concerned is the is the ability that we do a kind of volumetric tell, where a creature can turn around and be like, I'm going to shoot like some kind of cable with a spike on the end and pull you to me. You can literally jump over his telegraph. He telegraphs on the ground, and his ability only comes out this. But because you can double jump and get higher, you can literally leap over his attack and then land your own attack. So there's a lot. It's like you said, it's super movement based.
Super movement based, and I think that's sort of key for MMOs nowadays. I think gone are the days of sort of standing in one spot, going through a sort of combat rotation, and nowadays people want to really feel that they're fighting something, and that something that they're fighting is fighting back at them in interesting and dynamic ways. And I especially am excited for PvP, because the skill cap is going to be set extremely high, and I think it's kind of underestimated how high the skill cap in PvP is going to be, simply because of the amount of spells you have. Now, the logic behind everything would say, hey, if I've got like 30 to 40 spells all over my UI, that means that the skill of the game is going to be extremely high for me to adjust, because I've got to make, 30 to 40 decisions on what spell I'm going to use and in what order to defeat my opponent, and I'm going to have to know each and every class so that I can counter that. Whereas in Wildstar and in games like Guild Wars 2, the PvP is more about positioning and movement and using the right spell at the right time. Because when you have a limited amount, if you've got a spell on your cooldown, spell on your hotbar, which has a very long cooldown, and you decide to use that spell, if you use it at the wrong time, in the wrong moment, or if your opponent dodges it and sees what you're about to do, then you might have just thrown away a win. For example, I remember in Guild Wars 2, the warrior had an ability called 100 Blades and an ability called Bull Rush, and at the start of Guild Wars 2, especially in the beta, what you would do, you would use your Bull Rush and you would charge your opponent, right? And then you would hit your 100 Blade skill, and that's what does your burst damage. And if you hit them with both of them, especially if you give yourself some sort of buff on the back of that, your opponent will just melt. But if you miss all those attacks, everything's on cooldown and you only have a couple of abilities to sort of deal with, so your opponent can really take advantage. So it's a lot about positioning yourself so that you can actually hit your opponent so they can't dodge you. And I don't know, I think just the PvP is going to be a lot more sort of versatile and a lot more skill based than people actually think. I think it's going to emphasize this sort of movement based combat. There's going to be a lot of dodging, a lot of jumping, a lot of sprinting, and I think even though we've got a limited set of abilities, I still think Carbine and the guys at Wildstar are going to design them in a way that can be used for PvP. So you have, say, like a couple of interrupts, say damaging spells, utility spells, buffer spells, all these different types of abilities that you can use that benefit your character and your other characters around you in PvP. Because it can be done. Like if you look at games like League of Legends, for example, you've got 5 abilities, is it? Or 6 abilities, including like Ignite and Flash and all that nonsense. And they're one of the best PvP, MOBAs are one of the best PvP genres out there. So with limited sets of abilities, you can still make a game extremely fun and extremely good. And I know a MOBA is different from an MMO because you can choose from a lot of different characters in each sort of PvP setup you go into. But the point still stands, the concept of the PvP there is that you have these abilities to use, and you have to use them in the right way, and you have to position yourself so that you can use them and get away or get the kill if you need to. So there's definitely a lot of potential for the PvP in this game, and that's one of the things that I think the movement really complements. Which brings us on to our last section, which is the Arkship 2013 EU event, which is happening right now on the 19th of April. This is an event hosted by Carbine. They have literally just said to a lot of fan sites and sort of media press out there, like gaming press and different types of fans and people, they've invited them to come along and to play the game and to just experience Wildstar in its sort of closed beta phase that it's in right now. Now, of course, the game is still under NDA, and that's the non-disclosure agreement. So after the event, we're not going to hear a lot, like every little bits and pieces that we want to hear from these guys, but I'm guessing that they will be told, you guys are allowed to say this, you're allowed to talk about this feature. It's awesome that we get to see Carbine sort of interacting with the community in this way. A lot of games have done this in the past. I remember, I think all the way back in, was it Warhammer Online? Or there was some sort of game way back when where they did a community event and they sort of got all the community fan sites and everything in to play the game, and it really creates a great buzz around the game, and it gets all these fan sites talking about all these different aspects of the game a lot more, because they're going to know things that they're not going to be able to tell us. So they're going to get even more excited, just as excited as Carbine themselves are getting. And as things are getting revealed, it's going to be a lot more sort of epic, and they're going to be able to talk about their experience playing X and Y and Z feature, even though they weren't allowed to talk about it before. So it's like, oh, now war plots have just come out and they've talked about it and we're allowed to talk about it now. We played the war plots and they were absolutely awesome. So we've got a lot to look forward to from the community and from fan sites and podcasts and stuff to come. And I just think it's amazing that Arkship 2013 is actually happening, and Carbine are, I don't know, giving recognition to the community out there. So yeah, it's awesome. Which brings us on to our community segment. Now, if you need to find yourself a guild, you can head over to wildstarguildex.org, and they have launched their Wildstar section of their site. So you can look for your PvP guilds, your PvX guilds, your PvE guilds, whatever you need, they have it for you. And of course, they also have it for like Guild Wars 2 and Elder Scrolls Online, so they are a very notable site, and I'll definitely recommend heading over there if you are looking for a guild for yourself. Pre-release, of course, for the moment. And sadly but surely that brings us to the end of this week's Wildstar Weekly. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Please let me know if you preferred the cool feature of the week over the speculation zone, and tell your friends about this show if you know anybody that would also like to know the Wildstar news for the week. So guys, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please leave a like because that would help me out a ton, and I'll see you all next week.